a thing that I definitely wanted to touch on a lot was culture. I feel like
I figured, yeah.
yeah. Oh, it's a conversation I think is a long time coming, because I'm fascinated by culture, but also not only that, there's a level of this. I like to think very respectful, because I with a full head of there's so much I want to know, but also I understand how as I get older, this not all cultures exist as a culture to just hey, let me show off all my stuff that we're used to, because multicultural is an idea that is great and exists, but we have you start to like, and I think this is across all kind of ethnicities as well. You start to tap in the whole multicultural isn't. It's kind of like something that's good for Western society now that we've existed with worlds coming closer, but often those pockets, some of them, some cultures, I feel like whether it's better than or not, have adopted this level. We keep to ourselves, and I think an example would be obviously your culture, the Hazara culture. Is that correct, or should I call it Afghan culture?
I think it's correct. I think
we'll call it Hazara culture. Yeah. Well, first of all, this is me putting my limited understanding of having grown up, with this exposure of being friends, my experience with a culture that have no issues or anything, but would rather from my perspective, seem to kind of want to keep to themselves, right? Which is nothing I can fault. Do that. I can see why you would want to. Well, first of all, my understanding is nomadic culture, right? Is that true?
What do you mean when you say nomadic culture?
Nomadic as in, not to say they don't own any land, they have where they belong, but they move.
Okay, I'm going to correct you on that one.
Please correct me.
It's not necessarily nomadic, but okay, so they do have a place in Afghanistan.
Yep.
Originally they were in central Afghanistan.
Yep.
And then now they're spread in different countries. But more than that, it's like right now there's two different cultures of Hazaras exist. There's the ones that are still in the country, and then there's like a diasporic culture. And these are myself and people who've moved outside of Afghanistan.
So, which is similar to obviously what we have in Vietnam. You have your Vietnamese Australians, Vietnamese Americans. Same thing with Hazaras. You have your Hazaras in America, Australia, but also you have that breakdown of Hazaras who don't move that far out. They move much closer to Pakistan, India, stuff like that. Yeah.
But, okay, here's what actually happens, right? And this is still happening to a lot of Hazaras in the country, right? It's like kids our age, well, not necessarily kids, but young men our age, this is a time when they have to provide for their family. Like earlier than this, right? So let's say you and I, we grew up in Afghanistan, right? Age 16, 17, we smuggle ourselves to, let's say, Iran, where they're working like 18-hour shifts, doing hard labor work to send money back to the country.
The stuff that we know how like today we live in this world, we hear what's called, it's fucking fascinating, because what we call olden day is current for those countries that are still developing.
Look, I'll tell you this actually. When I went to Iran for my brother's wedding, I met an old friend who my childhood from Afghanistan in Iran, right?
Yeah.
And he was telling me about the work he was doing, and he was headed back to Afghanistan. So I spent a few days with him in Iran. After he went back, he was telling me of his plans to smuggle himself to Dubai and do everything. He had plans for what he wanted to do after he returned to the country, right? So he returns to the country. Okay, this is when like the Taliban start moving in. So they already own a huge chunk of the country, and now they're starting to slowly move in and take in the villages and big towns. And basically you only have like a few big cities that are relatively free, right? The next picture, and I take a picture with him, and it's really cool. We get 2 copies. We write like a message on the back for each other. I have his framed. He probably has mine framed. The next picture I see of him, he's on this mountain. He's holding his AK-47. And it's not like you have an army on the mountain protecting the mountain. You have like 4 or 5 young men, 1 older man, and they're just on the mountain, and like
just kicking it.
Because it's called.
What's his job? Is that military
no.
or?
It's like they are the last protection for the village
Mm.
that's behind them.
What are
So-
they protecting the village from?
From the Taliban.
From Taliban,
So-
who'll come through the mountain and yep.
Yeah. So villages tend to be in valleys and they're surrounded by mountains, right?
Hmm.
So, and this is going back to like the Afghan Civil War, but basically, you hold a defensive position on the mountain, right? So that's what they're doing. But it's like, how can you possibly like there's 4 or 5 of you,
Yeah, with a whole mountain.
and you're not that experienced?
Yep.
How are you gonna from this mountain?
From like basically a militia or an army that they come through.
I
Yeah.
can't even express the impossibility
Yeah.
of
And
doing
that friend's our age, right?
Hmm.
There you go.
He's my age.
Yeah.
We were kids together. We used to go to school together. Yeah.
Like,
But luckily,
Hmm.
like they escaped and then the last I heard they were in Kabul.
Kabul?
Yeah.
Oh, main city. Well, my understanding is if I go to Afghanistan, because, dude, it's a country I definitely want to visit. First of all, countries like Lebanon, Afghanistan, Pakistan, countries that haven't been full-on rushed into the tourism and have, like, to retain, hopefully, for now, retain a lot of their natural beauty, unappreciated, I want to go there. I want to go there respectfully, but also within the lines whatever I'm able to do. So, for example, my Hazara friends all live out in the mountains. I ain't fucking visiting any of them.
You can't.
I can't.
You can't.
I'm gonna die.
No, now they're mostly in Kabul.
Yeah.
Or they're mostly in Herat or
Yeah.
like one of the big cities.
But you can see it's like someone, you know me, I love travel. I would,
Mm.
like, you know, when I went to Vietnam, I went out to the fucking mountains, like right near China, you know? I went real close to our neighbors and had a look over. Can't do that in Afghanistan.
Because where my village is in Afghanistan, it's like, you know how the Himalayas mountain ranges from China all the way to the other edge of it is in Afghanistan.
Mm.
So it's like we can see the one end of the Himalayas mountain range, and that's like where, like you wake up and that's the view.
And wait, you see that from where? From Kabul?
No, from the
Yeah,
village
I
that
wish.
was in.
I wish.
Not from Kabul.
Because again, I've never, very rarely sat down and, you know, typed Afghanistan in as a thing to research. So I only pick up through my exposure things like, for example, and I like to think I do a good job because it's not like high on people's level of like needing to know. So when I meet someone who's Hazara or Afghan, I can say things like, "Oh, Molistan." It's like, good job, Simon. There's a song about a guy liking a girl from Molistan, you know?
Yeah.
So like I'm that, like I'm so like, like, you know, Namsha. I mean, like not gonna happen
Yeah.
or something, yeah.
Namsha.
Or the fact that like I can, I mean, not trying to be or ethnic or nothing, but I can like kind of look at someone. Oh, I think you're Hazara. Like I think they're Hazara, and it's something that's I hold personal to me because
Yeah.
it's like you don't get to just know this.
Mm.
You kind of you through exposure, not through like full trying to get in to learn. You can do your level of research, learn on like you know. I'm sure I only learned like a couple of years ago that you guys don't speak Afghan, you speak Dari.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things like that. Like it's
No, so Dari is like the nationally recognized
national language, right?
of the country, right?
yeah,
But then the Afghans, I should say Pashtun, which
Yeah.
is the other the major ethnicity, they speak their own language, which
Mhm.
is Pashto, and
Yep.
then Hazaras, we speak a dialect.
so you have a
Hazaragi.
dialect of Dari,
Yeah.
but it's
So
still
we-
Dari,
yeah.
right?
So we speak Hazaragi,
Mm-hmm.
which is a dialect, but we can also speak. We speak Hazaragi, but we can also speak Dari. Yeah.
Wait, but it's still the same language, but you can like basically switch from your dialect to the other dialect, right?
Yeah.
It's not an accent thing, is it?
It's like it's not a whole new language, but there are like a lot of words.
Okay, a lot of
different.
that.
Yeah.
And do you? So would it? And I mean, I can only talk about this experience surface level because you know you actually have to really study language, know things like this. But when you speak the Hazara version, do you feel like? Because obviously there are words that are different that you will use. Let's use those. But then do you also have a different accent, or do you have the same accent across if you're speaking Dari? Just
No,
different words.
It's a different accent.
Different accent, yeah. It almost feels like you're being a different person. You know what I mean? Because for me, obviously, distinguishing between South and North Vietnam, I'm a Southern accent kid, right? Great, no problems at all. But I can put on the Northern accent, and
When
there's
you
the
go up
different.
to the north, do they know?
My Northern accent's not the best.
Okay.
But the fun thing though is, and I think maybe you experienced this as well. For example, I speak Vietnamese here, right? So the Vietnamese that I speak is my parents left Vietnam whenever they left Vietnam, 1975, 1990 something. Cool. That Vietnamese, this Vietnamese they speak, comes over to here and it freezes here. Because we kind of just speak it within ourselves, right?
You were born in
Vietnam,
Vietnam,
yeah. But I grew up here my whole life.
Okay.
So then I grow up and I speak Vietnamese fluently with my parents, and I kind of capture that pocket of time, that Vietnamese from back then, right? But what happens is it then gets kind of mixed with the fact that I grew up in Australia. Not to say that I say things wrong. I obviously say things kind of out of place and stuff. Very minor because I am fluent, but you can hear it. My act. It's not as simple to say it's an accent. It's more like word choice.
Okay.
Tonality, rhythm. Even the rhythm that you speak, they can tell. So if I go back to Vietnam, first of all, I already look like I stand out because I'm much bigger than everyone else, and I feel like you'll see this a lot for yourself when you go back as well. You're just more well fed.
I'm planning to go there.
Yeah, you're much more well fed. My skin's fairer because I think I don't have to work out in the rice paddies and things like that. No dramas. So I really stand out. And when I speak, people go, "Oh, you're definitely from like there." But if I try to put on the southern, really try to embody what's going on, I kind of get away with it. Like I've gone up to ticket booths where they're like, "Oh, you're gonna pay international price." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm from the city. Like, dude, I'm from District 5. What are you on about?" I'll push it like that.
Yeah.
I think the best correlation is if I were to speak with a bogan accent, like, "Oh mate, I don't know what you're on about. I grew up here my whole fucking life, So they're like, "Oh, sorry, sir," shit like that. But language is fascinating because it happens on this because you yourself, you see when you meet your culture in another country, different diasporas, right? I think so. Something that I don't know enough to kind of let's bring up and talk about, but for example, I think I asked what happens when you have Hazaras who grew up in Pakistan, things like that. Do their Hazara language change a bit? They speak it with a different accent.
Here's a very, and this is the fact that you somehow named Pakistan is kind of weird, but I'll tell you why. The Hazaras around the world, including the Hazaras in Afghanistan, because the Hazaras in Pakistan, they gave up speaking Hazaragi. They created their own this
There's
language,
a reason why I asked.
and they somehow hold themselves superior to other Hazaras that are in the country or outside of the country, and we don't like that. Yeah,
because there's a level of
and it's not to say there's we don't like them. No, it's just we don't like that they've sort of discarded the Hazaragi language and adopted something that doesn't even resemble.
Well, hold up. Did they adopt the Pakistani language, or did they take that language and kind of amalgamate it to their own kind of thing? So now it's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
There's a level of that. Okay, I can understand why you'd feel that way.
Yeah.
Because I've when I talk about it from the outside, I'm locking it down on, the mindset that makes you feel that way. Because my experience here with my friends with Zara is they've worked very hard to keep the culture from the history, which is all very recent, the stuff that's happened.
And the language too. If I speak Hazaragi and someone can be, for example, lived in Eastern Europe, right? We'll speak the language, but if we go to someone who was brought up in Pakistan or in more specifically Quetta, right? They'll have a different language.
Yeah, and there'll be that clash there.
Yeah.
Do you have a bit of your Hazaragi is a bit different because you've grown up in Australia?
No, I think it's...
Because it's kind of how people can go, "Oh, you've definitely grown up outside." Not to, and again, I never take offense to when they tell me my Vietnamese is different because I know what they're talking about. They can hear it. It just stands out. In a room, when everyone's talking, your voice will kind of, this is what I feel, my voice will kind of stand out above everyone else's because I'm just speaking on a different frequency. It's not what it feels like.
No, I think it's because I was brought up in the country for a little bit.
For quite a long time,
I'm always surrounded, when I go to family parties, by other Hazaras. But it's they have niche words
Yeah, those niche words
Those niche words that
that you can't pick up. Yep,
yeah.
that happened with me in Vietnam as well. I think, well, actually, what I'd ask then, do you think the Hazara language has changed a lot over time? Because remember what I told you about Vietnam and how we capture the pocket, I'll reset that, the pocket of like language. So 1970 something, 1990 something Vietnamese, boom, over here, frozen and then developed under me, the Australian. Has that happened with yours, or is it still too recent for that to have happened? Since, people started leaving.
I think it's happened a little bit. Yeah, but
It's inevitable, not an
Yeah.
issue. It's just fascinating to see
I
that.
think for the most part you can still understand.
Yeah, I mean, without
very
without a
clearly.
doubt.
Yeah.
I think, because I feel like for you probably still speak properly because you left at an older age and then you're surrounded by your family, so you're consistently speaking on a sophisticated level. For me, what I noticed with, I'm not the best example, my friends is the ones who they can only speak functional, what they're used to with their parents, like things to do with getting objects in the house moved around, they can only do that.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't have it as good as you where I meet the mark well. I'm a little bit under that mark where grammatically I'm not maybe the best. It's just not perfect because it would take me too much effort to kind of stop and try to think, to talk about this perfectly. It's more better off that I just speak the way I understand and people will understand me, but I stand out. Yeah.